Maria, if you need any translation services.
Muy buenas tardes a todos, soy María Lobato. Si necesitan traductor, estaré interpretando simultáneamente y puede pasar al frente por un dispositivo. Gracias.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to Modesto City Schools 1431st regular board meeting of August 19th, 2019. This meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being recorded and videotaped. You can view the video of this meeting or past meetings on our website. In closed session, the board took the following actions. In closed session, the board accepted the resignation of a permanent certificated employee. The vote was 7-0, unanimous. The terms of the resignation are available in the Human Resources Department during regular business hours. And regarding to item A22, the board adopted a motion to deny a student record challenge. The vote was 7-0 in favor of the motion. There were no other reportable actions taken. So with that said, we're up to item A3, which is a moment of silence. If you join me to stand for a moment of silence. Where's our flag? And now we'll do the pledge. I think next month we'll get our student leaders back, right? I don't have students leading us in a pledge tonight, correct? So, please salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to call your attention to the fact that if you wish to address the board during the period for public comment on a subject not on the agenda, you must complete a public presentation request card and submit it to the board president prior to the period for public comment. Only those who have submitted cards will be called upon to speak, and no cards will be accepted after the period for public comment has begun. Every person who wishes to address the board must fill out a card. You will find cards in the lobby. So that brings us to A5, announcements. We have some exciting things going on in Modesto City Schools, and I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent to make any announcements that she would like to make to the community.
Wonderful, thank you. First off, I want to welcome everybody here today. It looks like we have a full house, and that's always a great sign. This is our first board meeting since we've started school, and I have to say we had a fantastic week last week, and that is all due in part. Thank you to the cabinet for all the planning you did in this last 6 months, and really this concentrated last month. District staff and many of the folks out here in the audience, and also our site level folks, put many, many, many hours into planning for and opening of schools. So I thank you for that. I also want to thank the sites out there that are listening and those that are in the room. I've been out into 10 to 12 different schools, and I really see the difference and the change in the welcoming environments and the customer service. The grounds look great. Everything looks clean. I was out at 2 schools today, and I literally was greeted and escorted to the rooms that I was going to, and that didn't happen last year, and it really makes me feel welcome, and I'm sure it's making our parents and our community feel welcome also. So I want to thank everyone. It was a great start to the new year, and I look forward to the remaining.
Okay, I have one more before we go too far because we have our new student board rep. I'd like to recognize Arnav Krishnamurthy. Please join us in welcoming Arnav as our student representative to the Board of Education for the 2019-20 school year. Arnav comes to us from Enox High School, go Eagles, where he is a very high-achieving senior. Arnav is the current AESB president, has served as a class president for his previous 3 years at Enox. In Arnav's 3 years at Enox, he has created the College Alumni Night, which has extended to the district, a free book drive, and the Eagles Soar website, which keeps alumni and current students connected for tips and advice for college. The upcoming year This upcoming year, a tutoring program that RNOV helped create will be implemented. RNOV hopes to extend these programs to other schools and make education more accessible and fun. In addition to his leadership roles, Arnov takes part in Math Club, which is how I've heard about him because my daughter was very much involved in that in the previous years. Science Olympiad, and his own founded astronomy club. Arnov is very interested in astronomy and astrophysics, student government, and loves basketball. Again, let's give a warm welcome to Arnov Krishnamurthy. I'll get that right. To the Board of Education. Welcome, sir. I think now we have more recognition. We should just do a whole night on recognition.
That's right. So thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, trustees and members of the audience. I'm Kristen Noonan. I'm the new Chief Communications Officer, and I'm celebrating almost my 2-month anniversary of being here, so very exciting. But I have something even more exciting to share with you tonight as part of the recognitions. The person who's going to be joining us at the podium, Roger Orth, is the director over our maintenance and operations unit. And Roger just shared with me today that in his 31 years, he's been here 31 years, that's amazing in and of itself, that in his 31 years, the maintenance and operations team has never been recognized at a board meeting. So I think this is fabulous. It's great timing. We're bringing the maintenance and operations team. Many of the people who are here today, actually all of them are here on their own time because many of them, they got off at about 3:30 p.m. this afternoon, started at 7 a.m. And but there's a lot more who couldn't be here tonight, and Roger will let you know why they couldn't. But they have families, they have other jobs, they have different things that they're working on. But the reason why we're having them join us today is to recognize all of their hard work over the summer, especially as they prepared all of the school sites and the district office for the return of the 2019-2020 school year. Many of us have seen the schools and seen the transformation that's happened, and I've seen it in my first couple of weeks of being here. It was amazing, and I mean, my mouth was on the floor. I kept saying, wow, everybody is just doing a phenomenal job. So I'm really happy to welcome Roger Orth to the microphone, and he'll go ahead and go through recognizing his team.
Thank you, Krista. On behalf of the Maintenance and Operations Department, I want to thank Board President John Walker, the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Sarah Noguchi, and the Superintendent's Cabinet for supporting this recognition ceremony and for your unremitting support for the M&O Division. I'd also like to thank the Educational Services staff at the district office and at school sites for the collaboration, cooperation, and yes, the unending patience demonstrated in the heat of all these projects. I also want to give a special thanks to all the contributing departments in the business division that processed PCEs, account codes, POs, CLs, requisitions, budget expenses, and pay claims to keep all the projects moving. I stand here tonight to honor and present to you these fine maintenance and operations staff who have worked tirelessly for the last 4 months on the annual summer maintenance projects and the reorganization, right behind me. Regarding the reorganization, we did not hire an architect or a general contractor. Our maintenance and operations staff dug in and got it done with teamwork, passion, and determination. There were many deadlines looming as work commenced. Finishing district office workstations before employees returned from their summer vacations, or in some cases before they returned to work on a given Monday, and in a few cases before their first day of employment. The biggest challenge of all was the readiness for the first day of school. I'm proud to report that all district facilities were ready for occupancy thanks to these amazing employees who sit before you. This Herculean effort involved painters, carpenters, welders, landscape technicians, equipment operators, HVAC technicians, painters, plumbers, office machine technicians, security technicians, locksmiths, maintenance department heads, skilled trades helpers, custodians, lead custodians, head custodians, substitute custodians, account clerk 1, account clerk 2, employee systems clerk, staff secretary, and our facilities construction technician. And like Krista said a minute ago, they could not all be here. Some have second jobs, their children are in special events, etc. This undertaking was comprised of 37 projects at 30 different sites totaling over $29 million. Project list highlights. Certainly, I'm not going to go through all 37, but the single entry points at the 4 schools was a big deal. The new electronic marquees at 7 school sites, Modesto High's new serving area, exterior paint at 8 campuses, gym air conditioning in our junior highs, to where now we have air conditioning in all of our main gyms at our school sites, playfield renovation at 4 schools, and many, many more projects than that. Allow me to also add that in 2018-19, this group behind me completed 9,608 work orders, which is a 1,300 work order increase from last year. And I went back 10 years and stopped, but it is at least a 10-year high for the maintenance department. So to you folks, your work has helped Modesto City Schools. I have to look at you when I say this. Your work has helped Modesto City Schools become the destination district by making our schools more attractive, safer, longer lasting, more functional, and a place in which every student matters and every moment counts. Thank you. So without further ado, we'll begin the ceremony, and we'll please have you come across the front, and if you will stay in the building and line the east wall where Becky Fortuna is for a photo afterward, and also so we can have a final recognition. So that's how we are going to operate this from west to east.
You need the microphone.
Okay, we will start with Rodney Andrews. Come on up, Rodney. Thank you, bud. Thank you. Oh. Brian Birdsong. Michael Caviglia. Pardon? Thanks. Thank you. So you couldn't make it. Dennis couldn't make it either. Justin Crook. Joe Greer. Mike Hamilton. Oh. Ernie Lewis. Rigo. Is it Rigo Magana here? Rigo Magana. Hi, buddy. Luis Maldonado. Richard Mojica. Sorry. No? It's not here? Mojica? Yes. Richard, thank you. David Moreno. Saul Munoz. Richard Nance. All right, bud. Matthew Nissan. Thanks. Lazaro Ornelas. Alfredo Ortiz. Jose Rangel. Oh, man. Gary Renfro. Gary is a 40 plus year employee. Yeah. Ray Reyna. Maria Rodriguez. Juan Salinas. Esteban Sandoval. Good job, senor. Reed Semple. Luis Silva. Reed. Good job, bud. Sean Stevens. Good job, man. All right. Art Tanis. Good job, man. Kelly Turman. Good job, Art. Mike White. Kelly Belly. Darren Wilson. Good job, Mike. Eric Hassel. Eric Hassel. He was going to make it, but he couldn't. Jose Venegas. No. Mike Statzer. Trent Shuckman. Yeah, I don't see Mike. Christopher Peterson. What's up, man? Oh, okay. What's up, man? Thanks, Roger. Noe Hernandez. What's up, Noe? Thank you. Steve Mataresi. We have Mark Gonzalez. Okay, I'll do it while you go grab Mark Gonzalez. George Mirage. Good job, bud. Appreciate it. Yep. Tony Lewis. God, Lonnie. What's up, man? We got Scott Hamilton. No. Here we go. We got two more. Two more. Got Scott. Let me see these. He did RSVP then. You have Scott? Or Mark? Okay. Scott, come on up, please. Sorry. We will get your cert. Thank you. Appreciate it. Scott Haskell. Ladies and gentlemen, our new locksmith, Scott Haskell. Randy Bonander. Randy is our special low voltage person. We'll get your cert. Thank you. Mark Gonzalez. All right, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we got everybody. Awesome. You line the walls in a beautiful way, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again. I have to announce Vanessa Oliveris. Thank you, Vanessa. She was so busy working.
Okay, fun stuff. That brings us to A8, approval of the order of discussion. Oh no, A7, approval of consent agenda. I believe Trustee Newman has a conflict here.
Yes, I need to declare a conflict on item C9 on the basis of Government Code Section 1090, and it falls under the exception of Government Code Section 1091. And my husband works for the company Willie Electric.
Okay, so we're going to move for any other questions or comments from board members? I'll have one comment just to pile on to what we just did. One of the consent agenda items tonight is to close out some contracts, and that means that we've completed work. And for those of us who did this tour and all these folks we just thanked, there was a ton of work done this summer, and it's greatly appreciated. With that said, we're going to pull C9 and ask the public if there's any public questions or comments on the consent agenda. Seeing none, we're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus C9. And a second? And first, second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Now I have to find. Brings us to C9, which is a ratification of purchase orders and Visa payments for the month of July 2019. Looking for a motion to approve. I see Trustee Brown. Second by Trustee Marks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously.
I have a point of clarification.
Okay. Clarify, Trustee Marks.
I was just wondering where the public presentation portion of the board meeting is.
It's coming up here as soon as I get through
Oh, I missed it.
approval of
Okay.
discussion action items.
Oh,
See, sometimes I
I flipped, it's on both sides.
I
Never
know
mind.
sometimes I get
Apologize.
these mixed up, but I'm actually on top of it tonight. So, we're looking for the A7 approval order of discussion action items. I need to pull one item because Miss Odell is not here tonight. And so I believe that is B5, report on Modesto City Schools .5 professional development incentive, and we'll bring that back at the next board meeting or a future board meeting when Mrs. Odell is here to present. With that said, are there any members of the board who wish to speak regarding the order of discussion of action items? Seeing none, out to the public. Any questions or comments regarding the order of action items tonight? Seeing none, back to the board. Looking for a motion to approve the order of action discussion items minus B5. So move. Looking for a second. Trustee Lopez, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. So that brings us to A8, A9, period for public presentation. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. Your attendance shows your interest in our schools, and that we thank you. The period for public comment is limited to 30 minutes. Time will be allotted equally to individuals based on the number of request cards submitted. The maximum time for any one speaker is 3 minutes. I also want to remind you that if you wish to make a complaint against a specific district employee, you should follow the district's personnel complaint procedure. Copies of that procedure are also available in the lobby, as are agenda copies which outline the procedures we will observe during the period for public comment. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability for defamation. Before I ask tonight's speakers to address the board, I want to clarify that we may not engage in any discussion on the topic or topics that will be raised, because we are legally obligated to provide the public with advance notice about topics that the board will be discussing. Agendas are intended to inform the public about all topics of discussion and action, so anyone interested in a particular subject on the agenda may attend the meeting and address the board. While we cannot engage in discussion on items not on the agenda, I assure you that we will listen attentively to your comments. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. I have one card, and that's Mr. Frank Johnson. Sir. Good evening, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, board members, President. Frank Johnson, President of the National Association for the Advancement of All People, CEO for Interventional Health Administrative Services. Do I get the whole 30 minutes?
You get 3, sir. But it was a good effort.
I tried. Anyway, I come before you tonight about young girl, 12 years old, who gave up her summer for 1 year. She turned 13. She gave up her summer again. She turned 14, and she gave up her summer again. She's now 15 and moving on. She's spoke before City Council. She spoke before the Board of Supervisors. She's met with Adam Christensen, the sheriff, ex-sheriff, Galen Carroll, the City Police Department. She's now actually teaching professional staff how to use certain equipment. I don't want to mention her name, but she's going through trials and tribulation with this school district. She volunteered to do a transfer to get a Pacific class at a Pacific school. It was a struggle, a big struggle. She got it. They put her in a class, and just like I'm up, that's amazing, just like I'm up here and the only speaker, they asked the students to speak about what they did over the summer. She was the only one that got up. The teacher gave her 20 points. She was in the class for 2 days. Someone put her in the wrong class. And when they pulled her out the class to put her in the right one, they took her 20 points away. Now, I believe that child earned it. The issue now, I understand that there's students, because of behavioral issues and other things that transfer to different schools, are permitted to ride the bus. She was denied to ride the bus, even if it was just one way. The grandmother was willing to compensate, and you take the child, I'll pick her up, or you vice versa. They still refused to allow the child to get on the bus. Need help. This child has earned it. She has not had a vacation from the age of 12. And I'm telling you, she has worked hard and has been recognized by some of the highest officials that run this city, this county, and even higher up to the state capitol. When you've got a child in your school system that's struggling to do things that positive, there shouldn't be any question about her needs to continue to do what she's doing. So everybody knows my number. somebody please call me. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Frank, and because you, and I appreciate you not wanting to share the name because I'm a fan of privacy, you'll please communicate with the superintendent or a member of the staff from over here so that we can get on top of this before it gets too far gone,
All right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe Mr. Godot here. And thank you for sharing. That brings us to B1. Mr. Arnoff, if you have your first student board report ready to go, the mic is yours.
All right, there we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Arnav Krishnamurthy. I'm really excited to be the student representative this year. Being able to voice student opinions and concerns is something that's been really important to me throughout all my life in student government. And not only that, but being able to work with board members I've met and also everyone here and everyone in the district is something that I'm really looking forward to, and being able to impact the district the best we can. Some issues I'm really passionate about are mental health, student safety, making resources and materials accessible to all. Those are things I'm really looking forward to with this position that I'm really blessed to have, being able to solve those with everyone here. And I just finished my first week of school, so I don't have any direct concerns or issues to raise at this meeting, but like I said, I'm really excited to have this position, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this year, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe I've been told MTA does not have a report. I believe I've been told CSEA does not have a report. I believe that gets us, we're moving quick tonight again. Which gets us to B4, report on the first day of school. And I've lost my little list. Right. Trust Mr. Godot. I'm working off of two lists. One has names and one doesn't. Before you get number B5.
Yeah, back to the student representative report. Just for the benefit of our new student representative, is there some direction that we can help him with as to what agenda items he's allowed to vote on?
I believe, go ahead.
We will work to get him trained in how to vote and how to respond, and areas that he has the ability and the authority to do so. And Ms. Chambers and I were talking about that earlier today, so we'll make sure that you get that.
So I believe you do have the ability to motion and second, and I think above money and employees, I think you're pretty much same as the rest of us. So now we're up to 5, and Mr. Godot.
Very good. Thank you. Well, good evening, President Walker, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Noguchi. It's my pleasure tonight to kick off this presentation for Executive Cabinet to provide you an overview of the actions and services and the awesomeness that took place on the first day of school. Of course, the purpose of this presentation is to outline, things don't happen by accident, and so the success of the first day and first week of school. We're going to talk about the preparation that went into opening schools. We'll report about the facts and details about the first day, as well as share some of our community responses relative to our first week. Our efforts in this area align with district goal number 3. Clearly, to provide a safe, welcoming, and respectful learning environment is one of our utmost priorities. And I think you'll find from the presentation that we hit the mark in the first week of school. Like I mentioned, this does not happen by accident. It took a team effort. You see up there a list of all of the different divisions that are represented in our district, and it took all of those employees, their efforts, their planning, their labor, toil over these summer months, even actually going back into last school year to make this first week of school a success. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Associate Superintendent Mike Henderson in Human Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Godot. Good evening, trustees. It's my pleasure to outline our workforce for Modesto City Schools, the total employees that we have in the district as of the time the data was pulled. 4,453 total employees broken down into 1,684 certificated, similar number of classified, pretty close in number, 213 in management, and 424 certificated substitutes, 453 classified substitutes. So that combined is our total workforce for the district. In terms of hiring for the current year, of course, our department has been focused working with educational services, other departments, on trying to staff all positions so that we can start the school year with everybody in their places. So you see numbers there for our new hires, people who in certificated management were not in our district prior to in the 18-19 year, but had been hired on for the 19-20 year. And then classified, we picked the numbers somewhere over the summer about all the new hires since that time, beginning of June. Training before the start of the school year, new certificated staff had a 3-day training prior to the certificated staff return of everyone in the district. New managers to the district had 2 days of training before the management week, in which we all received professional development broken down by our respective areas. And then substitutes, second year going that we've had a specific training for certificated substitutes in our district, again to normalize what the expectations are for working in our district as a substitute, and it's been very well received. Pass it off now to Mr. Tim Zerley, Associate Superintendent, Business Services.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Business Services encompasses 4 divisions. We're going to highlight, excuse me, we're going to highlight 2 of those tonight for work done over the summer and for the first day of school. The first, Roger kind of stole my thunder earlier. I can't really add much more than what he added, and how proud we are of the ladies and gentlemen in maintenance and operations that helped in some way complete these projects, 37 summer projects over 30 sites, and $29 million worth of work. That was a combination of district funds and Measures D&E funds that we were proud to utilize this summer. Next is Nutrition Services, led by Senior Director Chris Atwell. And here you see a very proud moment for Chris Atwell. This is the new merchandising system at Modesto High School. And so you can see how attractive it is for a student to go up and have to pick from this on a daily basis, and how much of a Starbucks feel we have here. We have our own Starbucks at Modesto High School, and some would say it's probably better. So first day of school, 4,178 breakfasts and 16,001 lunches, again, through the leadership of Senior Director Chris Atwell. And then transportation. And you can see a picture of transportation with all the staff in front of the buses. We have 56 buses, 41 routes, first day of school, 9,095 miles were traveled, and that consisted of 10,663 high school students, 5,397 elementary students, and 477 special education students. Now I will turn it over to our Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Russ Selkin.
Thank you. So we had over 23,000 student computers ready for the first day of school, and that took a lot of work weeks and months before school started for that to be ready. And included in that is just database and systems rollover, maintenance on systems in the background. And then out of those 23,000, and again, that doesn't include printers, peripherals that, number into the thousands, we had over 17,000 devices checked out to students for our one-to-one program. So that's an amazing amount of number. And also part of that process is accountability in terms of inventory. We had to do that at the beginning of the summer and again at the end when we're handing these out. So the first day had over 213 tickets, and we ended the week with 110 tickets that were open. And then we closed 310, so that was good. We caught up with maybe some stale tickets, and at the end of the week, it was the same thing. We basically kept up with demand for the trouble tickets and the calls, as well as the phone calls. We had a little over 356 for the week. And the biggest note here is there was no infrastructure outages for the first week of school. So the team did a great job.
I'm not sure I can top that. So next, speaking on behalf of curriculum and instruction and professional development, there was a tremendous amount of planning that went into providing the events and projects that took place over the summer and during the weeks leading up to the school year. This planning resulted in a number of very important trainings and workshops, including the Connected Educator workshop, new teacher orientations for all new certificated staff, instructional coach training for our coaches that receive training to support teachers in the classroom this year, as well as the beginnings of our .5 PD offerings. In addition, CIPD also coordinated 2 days of SWAN math training for our pilot K-8 school sites, those teachers that are piloting the SWAN math this year, as well as provided training for all of our teachers at various grade spans in new curriculum that was adopted last spring for implementation this year in history, social science, science, and academic language development. We also had Kristen Anderson in for a few days that provided support to site administrators, district admin, as well as our site leadership teams in preparation for teachers coming back those first couple of days of professional development, as well as supporting our efforts in collaboration this year. On behalf of Associate Superintendent Mark Herbst, Student Support Services got off to a great start. Special Education welcomed 4,224 students with disabilities back to school. In many cases, this involved a number of students transitioning from a different district into our own district. Additionally, we set up transportation for a total of 706 students with disabilities. This includes some of our students with the most severe disabilities, and in some cases involves very young riders getting on the bus for the first time. Overall, things went very well for our students with disabilities to start the year. In addition, Steve Hurst at the ACES staff welcomed 3,121 students to our after-school program. This is a dramatic increase from last year, and we continue to enroll students daily to ensure the greatest number of students can access our after-school program. Additionally, Mark Herbst, Danielle Hinkle, and Amber Barnwell also welcomed our new teaching staff and provided them training on classroom management. They covered some of the basic research-based principles of classroom management and gave them an introductory training on positive behavior interventions and supports, as well as restorative practices. And Ed Miller was involved in providing training to our campus security, campus supervisors, and yard duty staff to ensure our first days and all days to come are successful. First and foremost, on behalf of Educational Services, the first day of school doesn't go well, and the first weeks and the year don't go well if our teachers are not on the ball. And so, we want to recognize our teaching staff that really put forth a concerted effort in that first day. I know that Trustee Brown was out at Davis High as Dr. Noguchi and I were there, and teachers as well as students were out welcoming. And I think you'll see as we go through the slideshow that our teachers made a tremendous difference on the first day of school, providing that positive energy and safe and welcoming environment that we want for all of our students. So as I mentioned, Dr. Noguchi and I were out visiting campuses. We toured the district and visited school sites with new principals. We observed faculty and staff meeting and greeting students, parents, and other staff members, as you'll undoubtedly see in the coming slides. There was evidence everywhere you looked that students and staff were being provided with a safe, welcoming, and respectful environment. As we know, students don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. So those first days and those first impressions are critical to this process. Our staff and school sites clearly focused on district goal number 3 on the first day of school, which was providing a safe and welcoming environment for all staff and students. Throughout the day, Cabinet observed evidence of excellent customer service for all who were involved with our schools. And as you may have heard moments ago, in preparation for this year, we provided focused support for our teachers and administrators in several areas, including supporting our growth as collaborative teams. And on the first day of school, we observed teacher teams even coming together that first day on their prep time to collaborate around student learning. We also know that our young learners, our early learners, are a critical part of the process of growing as a district and growing our community. We welcomed over 2,000 preschoolers this year to Modesto City Schools. And of important note is we had 3 unannounced ECE licensing visits, which are basically an audit of those programs. Drop in on the first week and days of school, and we passed with flying colors. So kudos to our teachers and Senior Director Heidi Nunes in that effort. That is something that we're incredibly proud of. We have 21 families that family child care homes, and I lost my place. Oh, there we go. We have 165 students being served in family child care homes. Our TK increased enrollment at the beginning of the year, and we had a smooth implementation of full-day kindergarten. Few hiccups here and there, but for as many kindergartners as you see, and it was funny as we were walking through and visiting those classrooms, the separation anxiety for both the students and the parents on that first day is interesting. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kristen Noonan to finish the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Godot. So what I'm going to show, Brad is just going to go through some of the favorite photos that were taken. There are many photos, but as you can see, look at all of the smiles. There's the Davis High School photo that Brad mentioned earlier. I love seeing everyone's faces light up. You know, the kids, they were just awestruck as they were seeing the schools. They were greeted with high fives. Teachers were cheering for them, and it was kind of like you were at like a football game almost. There was even a tunnel that people could run through. This is at Ensland School, and El Vista also used, this is their new marquee, and they used that to and most of the schools, like I said, who have the marquees are doing a great job utilizing them. There's Johansson and then the staff at Muir Elementary. But it was definitely a period of celebration, and I think that energy has continued. This was Shackelford Elementary. The principal put the Panther head on, and she actually did, which you'll see, she did the TV interview with the Panther head on. She didn't break character the entire time. And I love that photo on the left. I actually started with that photo as well, but I think that's a brother and a sister escorting each other, and I just love how she has her arm around him. It's just really showing that support, and even the kids in high school, that was at Modesto High. So as I mentioned, we had several media come out. I was super, super happy because the TV stations, you know, they came down from Sacramento. And one thing I think that the Modesto market faces is a challenge because you really do need to, in the media world, pitch that story and really emphasize the importance of what are they going to get out of it and what are their viewers going to get out of it. So the top left photo, that was Good Day Sacramento. They came to both Shackelford and did a live feed as well as at Hanshaw Middle School. The middle photo is KCRA, Leticia Ordaz. She was at Shackelford for, gosh, I think about 2.5 hours, which is wonderful that they would, and she's a prime reporter of theirs too, so she got a lot of great footage. The middle one is Fox 40, and they ended up coming to Hanshaw Middle School, got some great footage again, did live feeds, and then we made it to the front page of the Modesto Bee with great coverage from Zeke Farrow, which we definitely appreciate, and he spent a lot of time at Hanshaw Middle School as well. So it's really important, I think, for us to hear what are the students saying. As I was there, I think because I was in a suit, I was getting a lot of questions like, where's my schedule, where's this? And I was trying to help people as much as I could. But there was one junior high student who came up to me and I asked him, are you excited to start school? And he said, you know what, I really am, because for him, throughout elementary school, his grades weren't all that stellar, but he knows he by 6th grade, he really put in an extra effort because he really wants to play basketball. And I think that's so important because he's determined to earn straight A's. Another student said he's ready to work. He knows it's going to be tough, but he wants to focus on his English learning. And I think that that's huge because we have such a robust English learner program and population. And like I mentioned earlier, there were balloon arches, there were DJs. It was just a party all around. And then the parent voices. So we actually received these on social media. So there were several comments actually. I didn't put them all, but definitely recognizing how great the schools look, the focus on the safety, how proud they are to be a Modesto City Schools parent. And one person, I love this one, they live a block away from Davis High, and they were outside and they heard all the fun and cheering, and they could tell each time a new wave of students came in, and I think that's job well done. And on the staff voices, so, you know, it's really important, I think, like Brad said, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without our teaching and all of our staff, but definitely the teachers are our frontline staff. And so really them focusing on watching the students grow over 2 years, it's an honor and a privilege. I love those words, like let those words sink in, because honor and privilege, they take their job seriously and they're definitely vested in what they do. So yeah, I think that's, you know, with these photos, I think they tell that story of the first day. And back to Mr. Godot.
All right. So our next steps, the first thing that we did at the end of the first day of school was Cabinet came together with senior directors and school leadership and debriefed what we observed that day. What were the positives? What were the outstanding things that we saw? But most importantly, where did we see that we can improve things going down the road? So we identified some areas that we can do better. And we memorialize those so that we can revisit that in the future and take steps to do it better, right? I mean, that's the idea, is take a look at what you're doing and always find ways to improve. We also need to continue to watch our average daily attendance, see where our students are. There's a great deal of anticipation as we wait for student enrollments to climb over the coming weeks, and we know that this isn't unusual for enrollment to be where it's at. We grew considerably after the first weeks, but we're also taking a critical eye as to why is that happening? Why aren't we, or why can't we get students to start on the first day of school? But we will keep monitoring and supporting sites in those areas, as obviously they are two very critical areas. And with that, we will turn it over for questions.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for the hard work in the report. Look at it, lights everywhere. Trustee Newman was up, then off, then back up again. I'll go to you first.
Okay, thank you, President Walker. You just mentioned at the end, Mr. Godot, thank you for the report. This was great. I love the pictures. It was just a lot of enthusiasm and about the first day of school. That's awesome. But you mentioned about the enrollment. So in terms of, and I know we're going to get an enrollment report later when we get more of a handle on it, because it's a dynamic process. But were we higher or lower than we expected? Were we in the range of where we expected, or were there any surprises or anomalies?
After the first week of school,
Yes.
The second count, we took 2 counts last week. So as of Friday, we're lower than projected, which I think Brad mentioned it in one of his comments, which is kind of the trend that we see every
Right.
year. We trend upwards after the first day of school.
Right. They got to figure out we're in session.
So our yes. So I mean, if there's any positives, we're closer to projections than we were last year. But I can probably say without a doubt we are in the midst of our 3rd year of declining enrollment. And that will be the case after 3 more weeks when we have our final counts for the month. But it is less than we projected, but that seems to be the trend the last probably 3 years as I look at the data in the first week of school numbers.
Thank you.
Trustee West.
I wanted to thank you as well for the report. It is wonderful to have good news and exciting things for this first week of school. And I just wanted to say several of us were able to take the field trip a couple of Fridays ago to visit a lot of sites and see what's been done, all the painting and the marquees. We drove by some sites, we walked through some sites. And Mr. Orth, your people left to go take a picture, but I just want to thank everyone who worked so hard this summer to get these schools ready, because the kids feel it, the parents feel it, the staff feels it, and it's just an awesome thing to see so many great things happening. Thank you.
Trustee Marks.
Yes, it was great. And I've had lots of great comments out in the community at different meetings. Dr. Noguchi and I were at the, hold on. We were at the Clergy Council meeting. It was a celebration of 6 years of Clergy Council with the MPD, CHP, different pastors and community members. And one of them mentioned how fabulous our schools look, especially Modesto High, because they had students that graduated there, as did I, and Ms. Newman. But it was it's really neat to see all of the positive words of affirmation of what has been going on all summer. And then as they drive by the schools, and some of them have watched them change. I had someone else say they watched Davis High School and the kiosk. They love the kiosk out there and how it changes. He's been driving by there a lot, but it's just really good. So I appreciate all the effort that went into this and getting it ready, and the enthusiasm and excitement. So, and along with Mrs. Newman's comment about the lower enrollment right now, I know in the past we've done some things where we sent out some staff members out into the community to remind parents that the school has started and knocking on doors and saying, school started a week ago. We need you to get your kids here. So I know we've done some push on that level, and maybe, I don't know if we've ever done billboards, but sometimes the billboards, school started August, whatever date it was. I have August 10th in my head. 12th? 12th, August 12th. And so just reminding them that school had started, but it's a little late right now to do that. But anyway, those are some things I know in the past we've tried to do a push, because a lot of parents still think, especially if they've moved here from another community, that school starts after Labor Day. So I'm hoping that our numbers will still improve, and especially with full-day kindergarten, I know they will. Oh, kinder and TK? Are there more? Oh, yeah, tell us, yeah.
Yeah, the one positive we did see after the first week is our transitional kinder numbers were up over last year. So that is good news. Those are students that will stay in our system, hopefully, throughout the next 12 years. Our kindergarten numbers are less than last year, but when you combine TK with kindergarten, we have more this year than we had last year.
Okay.
So there is some positives, and like it was mentioned earlier, there will be an enrollment report here shortly after the first month of school.
Right. Yeah, we'll probably have an attendance report sometime in September, and where we're at and any adjustments we need to make. So, and then I did have a question about,
No, go.
Okay. I had a question about the nutrition services, how we're doing tracking the students. I remember it being when we went to every student at all of our campuses except 2 receive free breakfast and lunch. And so, but we needed to ensure that they were being counted. How are we doing counting them? Was that, because I thought that was something that we were
I will let the expert answer that.
Chris here. Thank you, Mr. Atwell.
So I believe you're referring to CEP, Community Eligibility Provision, and we have that at all but 3 schools. And the tracking system, I think we had talked about switching to a clicker system. It's working fine. We were audited in December of 2018, and for the first time in the auditor's career, there were 0 findings.
Oh.
So,
Yay.
it's fine.
That's good to know. Yay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
That answers my question. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad. Got the information out to the students, and they're keeping track of it, and our staff too. Thank you. So, and I just also want to thank you for all the great food that you produce out of your out of the nutrition services. It's always been interesting over the years to see all the different items that you produced out of there. And I just appreciate the creativity of staff and yourself in how to ensure that our students have a nutritious meal that's very tasty. So thank you for that.
Okay, so I'll echo everybody's same sentiments. And so Mr. Atwell sat down. See, I didn't take notes because I didn't have a notebook with me when we did the tour. But the trivia that I took away, that was like the trivia of the day, was the reduction in price per unit of bread to 3 cents from what it was. And then they used those profits to then go in and upgrade and add blast chillers and more freezers. And that business sense is amazing because you took one item, saw an opportunity, reduced cost, and then used the savings to put back into the system, which is phenomenal. And I don't know if the number was 2 cents or 3 cents, but it was less than a nickel. So I was listening. Transportation. I have a daughter that rides a bus now, so that's going well, which is really neat because she's never been on a bus before, but now she's busing from Enox to Johansson in the mornings, and she can't get, we have not convinced her to get back in the car again, so the busing is going well. I apparently left before the photo opportunity at Davis, but I did go over to get Mr. Schroyer off to a good start because he was our assistant principal last year. Curriculum and development. I was so excited about the facilities. I forgot to mention one of the other items on the consent agenda, which makes 2 math items I voted for in my career because we added one for special ed, and essentially a life skills math class. And I think that's super important because that's something I've had parents ask me about in the past, and that was good to see on the agenda because they don't always need everything, but you need something that works for them. What else? And then it was just a fun day. And then Principal McCann. And for those of you who haven't seen it, go pull up your emails because it was in sort of the news feed. The interview she did on the news with Sacramento was just phenomenal. She never took the Panther head off. She answered every question. She was high-fiving parents as they came by, talking to kids on the side, never missed a beat, didn't miss a question. and it was just phenomenal to watch because she was on her game, which apparently is every day, all day. But it was just super neat to see, and it's good to see everybody involved and engaged. And it was a good week because I've heard no complaints. And if anybody in my house is going to complain, it'll be my youngest. And she actually said the other day, it was a Saturday, we should just go to school. It's Saturday. And I said, oh my God, this is the child that hates school. But she was, but the mornings are fun because she's over doing the culinary ROP. And so now, because like you mentioned with the basketball player that's looking forward to something, it's neat to have the students looking forward to something that says, okay, we're going to go do something that's not always math and English. So, but I thought it was a good week. With that said, I don't see any more lights. Any questions or comments from the public on first day, first week? Seeing none, back to the board. This was a report. Outstanding work, everybody, across summer, first day. Keep up the good work. And we did take a computer this year. So I was one of the ones that took one where I wasn't last year. Let's see, B5, where we've moved, which gets us to B6, Report on Budget Advisory Committee, which is surely Mr. Zierle.
This report, or the purpose of the presentation, is to give an update to the board about an upcoming committee for this year, the Budget Advisory Committee. The purpose of the committee, members we have currently and members we're still recruiting, proposed meeting dates, possible budget reduction strategies, and possible revenue increase strategies for the committee to consider throughout their 3 or 4 months meeting schedules. So this aligns with District Goal 4.1 to implement a sustainable plan for the budget under the local control funding formula. The purpose of the committee is to develop a budget allocation plan that will result in providing quality educational programs and lead to a balanced budget where ongoing expenses do not exceed ongoing revenues. So if we have expenses exceeding ongoing revenues, as you've heard, we are in a structural deficit, and you can only sustain a structural deficit for so many years before you eat away at all your reserves. We keep hearing reference to the R word or a future recession that is coming. We've been hearing this for a few years now. We are in one of the longest sustainable growth periods in history, and so everybody thinks that just around the corner there is a recession, or there has to be a downturn at some point. I got to admit, when the local control funding formula became into existence, I really thought budget advisory committees were gone and would be gone because of the LCAP committee. The LCAP advisory group kind of took the place of budget advisory committees. And just to give you an example, the last time, based on my research, Modesto City Schools had a budget advisory committee was around the spring of 2008. So it's been since before the local control funding formula. And again, that's because the LCAP advisory committee has kind of taken the place of this in many cases. However, this committee will work independently with the LCAP advisory group, and it should and it will merge the MCS goals with the LCAP goals. So that is part of our budget process, and that's something we have to do in our budget proposal every year. This committee will also serve as an advisory capacity to the superintendent for district budget issues, and we'll talk more about that later on, and also as the committee gets established and gets to meeting. But they will be an advisory to the superintendent for budget issues. We will guide them and have them examine the district's budget and multi-year projections, both for immediate or short-term fiscal solvency and long-term fiscal solvency. As you know, the multi-year projection is a 3-year projection that determines, are we going to be able to sustain our current revenue and expenditure patterns with the assumptions we have throughout the period of that projection. It will use a consensus process to develop ideas and input for the Board of Trustees to consider during the development of the district's budget and strategic priorities. So again, this will be an advisory group that will help with ideas, strategies during budget development. And also, I think most importantly, or very importantly, is to help us communicate this information to the community. So this committee will be our voice out in the community surrounding questions and issues with the district budget process. The proposed membership, superintendent, myself as the chair, senior director of financial services, 2 from Modesto Teachers Association. We already have 2, Doug Burton and Daryl James. 2 members from CSEA. We have not received names, so that's why you don't see any names there. Managers, there'll be 2 managers. We have, right now we have 1, Patricia Leonard, who has submitted an application of interest. Principals, we have Dan Park and Denise Powell. So we have an elementary and a high school principal. Board members, John Walker and Adolfo Lopez. We are wanting 4 parents. First time we went out on social media and on the website to try to recruit. We did not get any responses, so we're hoping that now that school's back, we can utilize back to school nights or other school activities to help us recruit parents. A community member, again, we did not get a response yet from a community member, and a student representative. We would love to have our new student representative, Arnav, on this, or anyone. I realize you're going to probably be busy with maybe other committees, but this is going to be an important committee that, again, will advise the superintendent and the board as far as the direction we go for this budget and future budget issues. So proposed meeting dates, we're looking at 4 to 6 p.m. We do realize, this is after hours for some of our employees that'll be on here, but we also have to take into consideration we are looking for parents to be on this committee, and also board members and then community members. So September 24th, we will begin, and you can see what right now our proposed agenda would be for each one. October, review district revenue and expenditures, group discussion, exploring budget reductions and revenue generation. Initially, when we saw this, we did not have a November in here, but we believe November is going to be an important date in order to fit in here. So we have calendared a November meeting, and that would be the time that this committee can draft a budget allocation plan. And then you can see January and February. So the goal is to get this committee wrapped up by February and finalize the budget allocation plan with recommendations to you for approval in February. Budget reduction strategies, these are things just we've come up with. Evaluate technology expenditures, hardware device options. We're fortunate to have Russ here as our new Chief Technology Officer. So we're very confident that this can be addressed and will be addressed during this committee. Identify programs, key programs to be evaluated during this process. Energy efficiency programs, now's the time with the work being done throughout the district that you've heard, and then other energy conservation measures. I think now's the time to capture that and make sure we sustain that. That's typically low-hanging fruit. We're already doing the work. So now let's do something where we can capture that and maintain that throughout the years. We're going to look at staffing levels, management staffing levels, certificated staffing levels. Those are driven by the number of students contractually in many cases, and then classified staffing levels. So we're going to look at all of our staffing levels as we continue down the road, as we mentioned, of declining enrollment. But how can we improve or increase our revenues and improve outcomes for students? Decrease our declining enrollment. Yes, we're probably we will be in another year of declining enrollment unless somehow a fleet of U-Hauls show up in the city of Modesto over the next couple of weeks. But what strategies can we have that will decrease that? Turn that faucet off so we keep our students instead of losing them. An attendance campaign. To improve our attendance percentage. It's not only dollars here. I mean, students, are shown to achieve higher when they're in school, and so that's a win-win. Get them in school more, we get more dollars. marketing plan, full day kindergarten, as aforementioned, that's to start this year. But let's market that and make sure everybody's aware that we have full day kindergarten. They know when it starts. They know when to have the students there. After school program options and professional development. Let's continue with welcoming schools and improving our customer services. So that's kind of a summary of the Budget Advisory Committee, the purpose and the schedule, and what we expect to get out of the meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Zerly. Questions from board members? I don't see any. I will pose one to my fellow board members. I'm going to ask that if there's somebody else that would like to be on this committee to represent the board, that maybe communicate with the superintendent, and we'll bring it back up at the next meeting. I did this, but I'm in the midst of a bit of a career change. And so I'm going to start taking some classes in the evening so that I can get my teacher credentialing done. And so this may present an opportunity for somebody else who would like to do this. And so if y'all think about that between now and the next meeting, somebody else could step in and do this. I think it's also a good learning opportunity. I've been in the budget since day one, and so I sort of know what to expect, but I'm going to commit myself to go taking some classes and get a little bit smarter about teaching. I got teachers up here already. I can get a head start. With that said, I don't see any other lights out to the public for questions or comments. Back to the board for comments. This was a report. Thank you, Mr. Early. This moves us to B7, discussion of naming of schools and facilities. I was going to bring a prop, big old can of worms. We'll turn this over to Superintendent. You have the mic.
Perfect, and I will keep it short, and I'm going to direct you just to two questions that I need answered tonight, if at all possible. As discussed with all of you throughout this last year, I've been approached by a few board members just around the issue of naming facilities or naming schools or renaming schools. In looking at and researching, we do have board policy and administrative regulations 7511 that governs new construction, but it does not discuss renaming or existing structures. So tonight what I'm asking the board is some direction around two specific questions. One, do we want to explore naming existing facilities? That's one. And two, if so, what facilities?
Looking for board feedback. For those of you who brought this up, this is your opportunity to sort of chime in here. You want to rename stuff? I think one of the things we discussed certainly in consult was I think naming things that aren't named is probably an easier lift. I'm not sure, but my guess if we're going to go out and rename something that's named, we should do so with caution, because my guess is that somebody's going to get ruffled. Those are sort of my two thoughts before we jump into this sort of headlong. So, I got lights here now. Move to my left, Trustee West.
I think it's a great idea to name things after people. I think it's wonderful to honor members of our community who have given so much to the school district and to the children. So I think that would be a great way to honor them. Which ones? That I don't know.
Trustee Newman.
All right. Well, since I've been on the board, we've renamed 3 new things, I think. If my count is right, the pool at Johansson, the pool at Enox, and then the stadium, so the Gregori Stadium. And so those were all new things. The pool at Johansson, even though it wasn't new, it didn't have a name. That was really a neat process, particularly the process of renaming the stadium. There was all these guys in the community. This grew from the community. And some old football athletes came out, and it was just so sweet. And with the family of Dawn's family, and it just was a beautiful really a neat process. So I know that it can be a great process. So those are the three things we've named. So I think that the policy is clear on renaming. It says rare. I don't know what rare means. I'm assuming it means that there's something that necessitates it, in that the community determined that it would no longer be appropriate to have that name, or it doesn't fit the school district, the school or the district needs. So I'm not inclined to rename things at this point. So Dr. Noguchi's asked for direction on that. So my inclination, unless there's a compelling reason, would not be to try and rename. But we do have a new professional development center, which is we've rehabbed an old building and made it new. So that is something. But we've got new things that we've put in. I was struck by the new, the Mr. Atwell, the new, the Starbucks thing, and we shouldn't call it's the Modesto Bucks, Mohai Bucks, little facility there. That is new, and again rehabbing something new, and as we roll out more of the bond work, I think there will be new things to name as well. So those would be two new things that I think would meet the definition of not being renamed but being new. So that would be where my 2 cents would be.
All right, I'm coming to you, Mr. Irvin, but Superintendent hit her light, so I'm going to defer for a second and then come back to you. Now she says no, so Mr. Irvin, you're up.
Yes, as one of those board members who began to explore this option here, I am one for renaming as well as new, but renaming in terms of sites that may not be particularly, that are not already named after someone designated, but we have sites like Shackelford, it's named after a street, Robertson Road, some other things. But I just think there's opportunity here to highlight and honor some trailblazers and contributors to our Modesto City Schools community and students over the years, that we have some opportunity here to do the right thing and do a good thing and honor those with recognition of a school in particular, or our facility. I know we have some. We're trying to figure out any of our schools named after persons of color. I don't know if we've got there yet, but that's another thing that we would like to take, and I would like to take a look at as well. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, Mr. Arnov, I believe your light's on. Join the conversation.
I agree with the idea that we should name or give titles to facilities, because, like many people already said, it gives a certain character and helps respect members of the community who contributed. I was thinking one possible facility was just the Center of the Arts, or like the auditorium or the stage room on campus, because I think that, I feel like that's generally a facility just also in cities and stuff that's named after someone who's contributed to the community. And I think that also, at least at my school, it maybe is not as valued, like the art department of the theater and drama production isn't as valued as it should be. And I think casting a new light on that area of schools would be cool and help venerable members of the community. So
Yeah, I would agree. I think if we named the NPR, would have a different take if it had a bit of a name to it, huh?
yeah, we have it called the NPR, which is a little
We do all the music productions, because my daughter was in band up until this year, because now she's graduated. But almost all those events were, are we in the gym or the NPR? And I think that's an interesting point, because you've got buildings that theoretically aren't necessarily the whole school. But if you've got something special on a campus that means something, like we did with Johansson, with the auditorium that we renamed last year or the year before, after they did some remodeling on it. Andrew Norman, which was a really big deal to those folks, and that was easy enough to do, and I think that's valuable. And I think your point's well said, because something other than NPR would probably be a bit of an upgrade. With that, Mr. Lopez.
Yes, I agree with board member Urban, and the fact, and I want to add to that is that I think it's a great opportunity for our community to really get involved in. I know that that definitely at one point schools or buildings had were named for a specific reason or lack thereof. I'm not sure, and definitely I want historians to come up and enlighten us about our past as well. But I think it's a good opportunity for our community to get involved and really have an identity or a symbol or an attachment to what they see in their community, right? And so I think naming our facilities or having that process or taking that process really allows us to identify ourselves with our names. So I would agree in naming existing or renaming existing buildings. I know there's buildings that aren't named that maybe we can work with, and renaming some that we feel might need a fresh new name, and of course definitely naming those that are coming up, which we're excited to see.
Trustee Brown.
So with our bond initiatives, I think it's really important that we get public ownership to everything that we do. And I can't think of a better way to involve our public than to name things that we improve as well as things that we build. So looking at our gyms that have just been upgraded and improved at our middle schools, could we do something there that give some recognition to the people who are attending those schools and something that they will recognize as just great community leaders for their areas? I think it gives us lots of opportunities. We're looking at cafeterias that will become basically community centers at each of the campuses that we build those on. So let's capitalize on that and create ownership everywhere that we can.
Trustee Marks.
Yes, it's great to create ownership. I agree with you and on the comments that have been said so far, and some individuals who haven't, that are contributing to our community that haven't had facilities named after them. I know in my tenure on the board, we've named 2 high schools and gone through that very lengthy process, very controversial at times, but we ended up with 2 names for the high schools. So that was good before we got too far, because they were high school 7 or 6 and 7. So they were just numbers at one point. But also we named the auditorium at Modesto High after Mr. Tischer. So because he was very involved with the arts. And so I believe that this helps the our board policy, our administrative regulation gives us some guidelines. I believe that naming facilities would be great first, and I don't know if anyone's come to you, because that's how those facilities were named, were that people came to us and asked us if we could name the facility after someone, and then the reasons why. And then we opened it up for, because it takes time, we opened it up for submissions, and then if there's 2 that are the 2 main ones, then we have to go through a voting process in order to determine which name that facility would be named after. And so far, it's usually been one name at the top, and it hasn't been a lot of controversy over the naming of it. But I think it's great. Now, I don't know. I would ask some alumni from Shackelford or Robertson Road, because those are the 2 that you talked about renaming, if they are good with having the school that they attended renamed. Because if you're an alumni, sometimes, hey, Modesto High, we're going to change the name Modesto High. It's Modesto. It's named after our city, but it's not after a person like our other schools are. So just saying, how would people feel about that? And maybe they'd be fine. I'm just saying. So I don't know, but I think if it's a street or it's not a Mr. Shackelford or Mrs. Shackelford or Mr. Robertson or Mrs. Robertson, I don't know. The street probably came after somebody's name, but we don't really know that, do we? So those are just some thoughts that I thought about as we were discussing this, and some things that I thought, well, we might consider some of those. And I appreciate the input, though. I think it's a great conversation, and I really value the idea of honoring people in our community and giving ownership to that. I think you said that well, Mr. Brown. and that would be helpful for our community to be able to honor those people in that way. So I think that's good.
Trustee Brown?
As I look at the dates on these two, the AR and the board policy, they go back to 1989. Does CSBA recommend any changes to these?
Well, 2005.
You know, I didn't look at that. Mauro Mack actually brought that up today. And we're going to be talking about how we're going to go about updating the hundreds of board policies we need to, and certainly could be something we'd look at moving forward. But what I'm hearing is perhaps not landing on yes or no. It's going out to the school sites and identifying current facilities that could be a centerpiece of their school that's just now a building, an NPR, exactly. Gyms, auditoriums, the new cafeterias in the queue. So perhaps I could generate a list, bring it back, and then you guys could narrow that down, and then we could identify if this represents what the folks that originally came to me, does this represent enough facilities so we don't have to look at renaming? So let me do a little bit of investigation. This gives me exactly what I needed as far as what I've been saying for the last 3 months is we need to have a conversation, that you all needed to have a conversation, because the individual conversations I wasn't getting anywhere with. So I definitely got the information that I need.
And I think that makes a lot of sense, because then not only do we go through this way, but if we start out with buildings that aren't named, or we look at existing facilities like gyms and things like that, as we go through that process, we'll be able to flush out a process for the things that might be a bit trickier, like those that are named after a road, and we'll be able to work through some of those bumps with the easier low-hanging fruit before we jump into something that's going to sort of potentially get folks sideways. And then at least that way, as we go through that process, then folks from the community can come up and bring their input into it as we move forward. So when we get to the trickier issues that are liable to get folks, that's Robertson Road, da-da-da-da, that we've worked out the kinks at that point. And I think that's a smart approach to go about it, one bite at a time. Trustee Irvin.
Well, just to piggyback on that, you know, no matter what process we go through, there's going to be kickbacks. I mean, I was in a district when those other schools were named, and all the scuttle going around of why, you know, why that person, why this person, you know, that's going to be there regardless. I think how we mitigate that is going to be the challenge. But I'm just like, you know, just like other schools, I was just using those schools as an example, but, you know, there may be a Mr. and Mrs. Lakewood or Mr. and Mrs. Sonoma. I mean, unless, you know, maybe gold was struck on one of them streets or something. I don't know. But I just think, I just, you know, think we have an opportunity to really make an impact in the community by coming back and revisiting that and you know, like you know, Trustee Brown said, you know, really get the community involved in being a part of that. You know, that's taking ownership right there. So I think, you know, it's worth doing.
All right, so I think we're in a good starting place. You got enough to work with? All right. Public comment. Going out to the public. Ms. Bird. Now that we've bounced it back and forth up here for 15 minutes.
Yes. Good evening and welcome back, and thank you everyone for all the good work that you do. Well, I agree with everybody, and I really do hope that the community will be allowed to participate in this, because this has been a discussion before. I know many of us have put forth Odessa Johnson's name before to have a school named after her. She started out as a teacher, first African-American teacher at Modesto High. She continued her delivering service to students at MJC, and then she was on the Board of Regents and also a 3-term school board member. And so I think that we've always put her name forward, but for some reason it never made it. But I'm happy and excited to see this come up again, because it is an opportunity to build relationships and to be inclusive. And I just want to mention just a small observation. This is not I don't want you to take it as a complaint, but just, I haven't been here in a while. And so after sitting back, what I observed today was I saw over like 34 people get an award. I didn't see any African Americans in that bunch. I saw a very nice first day of school pamphlet that was put together. I didn't see any African American staff in that. And so again, for me, sitting back, not feeling included or involved, and I probably believe it was just maybe an oversight or whatever, I don't know. But I think that we have to go out of our way to show and to embrace diversity. It's not just going to happen on its own. It has to be intentional. It has to be a conscious move. And again, you can expect that you'll see me rattling the cages for Ms. Johnson, because I think it would make a tremendous statement on your behalf to once and for all make African Americans feel really, really included and that we're part of. And the best way to do that is through name and signature. So again, and I also owe you an apology because I signed up for the tour and something came up and I missed it. I know it was my loss. I apologize for that, and I look forward to other opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bird. All right. This was I don't think it's a report, it was a discussion. No action here. This brings us up to 3 or 4 agenda items in a row on board policies. We've been going since 4:30. Can we take 10? Because we ran straight out of closed session, right out into here. Maybe take 10 and then we'll come back and start sort of chunking along these board policy changes, if that's okay. Let's see if we can get this crank back up here. We're going to shoot for it. It depends. I don't. We're into the tricky part. Once we get into policies, man, we can go downhill quickly. I lost my number here because she somehow took over. B. All right. This brings us up to B8. This is approval of reading of proposed drafts of board policies and ARs, a whole slate of them relative to charter school approvals. And then I think there was one point when I first started out on the board, there was a member of the teachers that said that we didn't have enough doctors. We got doctors for days now. I got doctor here, doctor there, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Perez tonight. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Board President Walker, Vice President Marks, trustees, and Superintendent Noguchi. My name is Dr. Lucilena Perez, and I am your new state and federal director. So go Destination District Modesto. I'm happy to be here. The purpose of my presentation this evening is the approval of the first reading of board policy, administrative regulations, and exhibit pertaining to charter schools. So I'll start with BP 0420.4 and the AR that corresponds with it. This is the detail of the authorization process, inclusive of an approval of a petition, denial of a petition, petition components, and location of a charter school. BP 0420.41 and the corresponding exhibit detail the charter school oversight, inclusive of material revisions to a charter, the monitoring of school performance, technical assistance, complaints, and charter school closure. BP 0420.42 details charter school renewal, inclusive of criteria for granting or denying a renewal and timelines for board action. And closing out the BPs is BP 0420.43, which details charter school revocation, inclusive of conditions for a revocation, severe and imminent threat, and appeals. And so with that very brief overview, I open this to any questions or comments that the board may have regarding these BPs and ARs.
Back to my mic, Trustee Newman.
And Dr. Perez, welcome. I'm not sure if this question will be for you or staff that's been here a while. We've dealt with a number of charters since I've been on the board the last 8 years, and so I think this is great. I think these policies are great because we did follow some sort of process in doing this, but most of it came from our legal counsel giving us the guidance from Ed Code. And so we had a lot of Ed Code in everything that we were doing, which this is now all laid out from Ed Code. So if there's anybody that, I'm not sure if anybody was around when we did, any staff. I don't think that we have any staff that was around when we did a few of them, but this all comes from Ed Code, right? And
correct.
We're basically just laying it out now, and yeah, I don't think there's anybody here that could answer whether this is how we did it before. It seems to me like it is. It seemed very familiar with the timelines and the process. So, and then the criteria, particularly like how we broke down the criteria in revocation and renewal, and how and why we would do that. That was never really articulated before, and I think that's a positive step in terms of transparency and how we operate. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And I think to echo Trustee Newman's point was that one of the things I had mentioned sort of going into this is that this isn't a traditional board policy in the sense that when I went, and we'll come up to training later, is that when I went through Masters in Governance, they talked about policies that are judicial review. And this qualifies as very much a judicial review policy, which normally happens back here behind closed doors, in the sense that we don't have the ability to say, Charter School ABC 3, we don't like you, so we're going to add 3 more tiers to your requirement. Or Charter DEF, we like you, so we're going to take 3 away. This really is, as Trustee Newman pointed out, a roadmap that the lawyers use to come back to us with, that we essentially say, we agree with the legal analysis, it's a yes or a no. We don't have a lot of flexibility here, correct?
That is my understanding as well, that there are petition components that are laid out very clearly in BP 0420.4 and the corresponding AR, that those petition components are laid out very objectively.
So and then we've done a couple of these with Aspire and then Connecting Waters, which is a very sort of unique thing all by itself. But I think the crux of this is that what we really end up doing is it allows us to check to make sure the lawyers have hit every one of the components and that we have a clear understanding of where we're going and what the process is. And I think I'll add one piece after everybody else is done because I think there's a couple pieces down the road here. Trustee Irvin.
I just wanted to ask a question about microphone check. In relation to the these ARs now, so does this mean that the charter school petitions now come to the district versus bypassing us and going to the county, or is that still the process?
Yes, I'll defer to Dr. Noguchi then. Thank you.
So petitioner has a choice. They can either come to the district first, or they can choose to do a petition, a countywide petition. The board policies in front of you is just identifying all of the laws relative to those different pieces, either oversight, renewal, or revocation. It's just laying out what the law already has to say. So we didn't have those in the system. We didn't have any board policies in our system. As we're going through and doing the review on what we need to put forward to the board, this was one that we decided to put forward.
So I think the other answer to your question, Trustee Irvin, is that if we denied, the appeal process would move from us to the county. And so that would be the next step in that appeal process, and that's where they would come in and then review what we said and agree or disagree. Trustee Brown.
So as I read through this policy, I realized that this is one of those things that we just need to adopt and get in place. So I'm going to make a motion that we move forward.
I agree. Actually, we have to go out to the public first, but then let's do that. So, looking like we're in a good shape here. Is there any public comment or questions relative to the adoption of the charter policy first readings? Seeing none, back to the board. We have a first from Trustee Brown, a second from Trustee Lopez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Outstanding. All the policies. It's 04, let me squint, 0420.4, AR BP 0420.4, BP 0420.41, BP 0420.42, BP 0420.43, and 0420.41. And for the public, if you want to get the summary version, look at the exhibit because it's a much easier document to really read and understand. Okay, so this moves us on to B9. Thank you, Dr. Perez. Moves us to B9, approval of the first reading of proposed revisions to board policy and review of administrative regulations, BPAR 3553, free and reduced meals, which is surely Mr. Atwell, I'm guessing, because he's still here, or Mr. Zierli.
Yeah, I will introduce this. Mr. Atwell is here for any questions, technical questions. But yes, as you have in front of you, it's the first reading for proposed revisions to board policy 3553. For free and reduced meals. This updates our board policy and administrative regulation to match current recommended language from the California School Boards Association. As you can see, the last time this board policy was updated, it was 1982, and the administrative regulation was last updated in 1985. Obviously, we've been providing free and reduced meals since then. If you have any questions on the specific language, Mr. Atwell is here to discuss how we're currently handling this.
Floor is yours, sir.
So I actually have on 3553 why we were looking at changing this policy to align with current CSBA recommendations. I think Trustee Marks, you talked about the meals today served through community eligibility provision, and this incorporates that into the new policy. Also, the other policies are policies that we've been following that have been in the nutrition services regulations and guidelines, but we are now just making them formal BPs and ARs.
All right.
Just for clarification, I believe Mr. Atwell is referring to item B10, the next item, which is a list of other board policies and ARs that we do not have currently. So those are new. B9 is we did have those board policies, but what you see on B9 is just revisions to just the single one, board policy 3553 and AR 3553.
And so which we've sort of summed up 2 agenda items in one.
So, yes.
Yeah, we do. I just want to make sure we're clear because we like to be transparent up here. It's our number one job. I have one light. I believe Trustee West is ready to go.
I have just one question for you. Under the BP 3553 on page 3, I just want a clarification. I don't understand, number 1, it says disaggregation of academic achievement data. Can you help me understand how this board policy, what it has to do with the achievement data?
So I think what that was talking about, we discussed that earlier today, that any data that's requested from sites to use to further test scores or enhance what they would need, we can actually provide that data. Many years ago when I first started, we weren't able to provide that data.
Okay, thank you.
Meaning in the sense that they got food or they were fed? I'm trying to understand the question she was asking. It seems like if you're operating and you've got your breakfast in you and...
Well, it's the free and reduced lunch information for families, socioeconomic
Got it.
levels.
So we're
and
looking at
how-
statistical stuff.
Right, because I know that information used to be confidential and it wasn't, you weren't allowed to use it for other things.
Correct.
And now we can.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Oh. So, I don't see any more lights up here. So I will go out to the public for questions or comments on, we'll take them one at a time. BP and AR 3553, which is the AR and BP on free and reduced meals. I'm not seeing anything, so back to the board. I'm assuming we don't have any more because we've got no lights. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'm going to make a motion for approval of both the AR and the BP 3553 and 3553. So my motion is for both.
Got a second from Trustee Irvin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. And that takes us to 10, which we've already talked about because Mr. Atwell is efficient. B10, we're looking for a motion to approve. Yes, I have to go. Oh, yes, right. So to the public on B10, which is the BP and ARs on child nutrition program, food service operation cafeteria funds, summer meal programs, and nutrition program compliance. Seeing none, we're back to the board looking for a motion to approve. I have a motion from Trustee Irvin. I have a second from Trustee West to approve AR 3550, 3551, 3552, BP 3550, BP 3551, BP 3552, and BP 3555. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Approved unanimously. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate your work. Where am I at now? Okay, so we're moving so quick I need to catch up. B11, approval of the first reading of proposed revisions to board policy and review AR, BP AR 1250, visitors and outsiders, BP 3312, contracts, and the deletion of AR 3312 contracts for the AR. This feels like a combination of presenters, but Mr. Zierle.
Thank you again, President Walker. Yes, we are proposing revisions to Board Policy 1250 and Administrative Regulation 1250 for visitors and outsiders to our facilities. This is done to update the board policy again to bring it in line with the current policies for California School Boards Association, but also to align with our newly implemented visitor identification system, the Raptor Technologies program that that we have for all of our visitors coming onto our campus. And then board policy 3312 is updating our board policy for contracts, and we're proposing to delete our current administrative regulation that goes with this board policy because CSBA does not recommend a companion administrative regulation. They don't have one, and we don't feel it's necessary. The board policy covers what we want to cover for contracts. So the first reading for revisions to board policy and administrative regulation 1250 and board policy 3312.
All right. Thank you, sir. I have Trustee Newman with a question.
On AR 1250, it's on page 2 of it. It goes okay, so who's an outsider, who's not? Okay. And a public and I think this all makes sense. So parents and not an outsider, and okay, one of us board members, district employee, public employee, or whose employment requires being on school grounds, not. Then we get down after 5, there's a non-deleted portion here that says an elected public official. But I would say that somebody that's not on the school board, that's not part of a public agency, is an outsider. So I'm not sure why that person wouldn't need to go through the procedures in the registration process. And so I'm not sure whether that was supposed to be deleted out or what.
Yes, I believe it's supposed to be crossed out.
The whole line is supposed to be crossed out. So the 4 was, but the whole line wasn't, so I wasn't sure. Okay, so that makes more sense. The whole line is then crossed out. Okay, an elected public official. And that makes more sense. And then a publisher, editor, or newspaper person, isn't that a person who's outside too? They can go on campus.
But I would agree with Trustee Newman here. I'd like to see him check in.
I want to see them check in. Yeah.
Yes, they will be checking in. That falls under outsider registration. So who shall register upon entering school premises.
But they're not considered. This list is any person other than the following is considered an outsider. So they're on the non-outsider list, is the way I read it.
They're on the outsider list.
No. The non-outsiders are student of the school, parent, governing board member, so that's 3. 4 is a person whose employment requires them to be on school grounds. Like, if the police officer's on the school grounds, that's
right.
Yeah.
5.
So, and then 5 is a representative. If Doug needs to be on the school grounds, or Yasser, that makes sense to me. But then number 6, that's the one I'm wondering if that's supposed to be on there. Is insider, outsider? I think they're outsider.
Clarification. So we had the press on our sites for schools, first day. Did we require every photographer, every reporter to come and register as any other visitor would?
I believe we did for the newspaper reporter because he was talking with the kids, and then we had the TV reporters go in and get badges as well. But the cameramen for the TV reporters, I don't know that they actually got badges because they were constantly escorting and they were escorted by Modesto City staff as well. But I can't comment for sure.
Okay, but we got to go back to, is this 6, is this supposed to be there or not? That's my question. This list is of not people that are not outsiders.
Yeah, I was just trying to.
Right. So
our practice showed that.
So I think that I would say.
I would agree.
I think that would be an outsider. Everybody else I would call non-outsider.
Because I think it'd be important, because I think what you're getting at is, as people come on campus, that they're checked in.
Yeah.
I mean, just generally speaking, I check in.
Yeah. We want everybody to check in, but the check-in process is more abbreviated for a known person, and so that's but number 6 is I have a problem with that. So I would want that deleted.
Okay.
If you look at above it where it says definitions, then it says visitors are, and it talks about and it's under a visitor.
So maybe if we
So
uncross
we-
out visitor, is that what we're getting at? Would that,
I think that's why that originally was under the visitor section, but because visitors is crossed out, it doesn't make sense now.
It doesn't make sense because they're considered.
The numbering is what's confusing.
so it's an uncrossing out of visitors, and then that guy becomes number 1 instead of 5. Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, that makes sense. I'll double check that, but
Okay.
I mean,
So,
And that's just because there's so much updating going on that you lose track of which guy's on top. And then I'm coming to, if you good, Amy? Yeah. Trustee Marks.
So I like the verbiage. I like that it said, even though it's lined out, it's on the bottom of that first page of AR 1250, Community Relations. It's the page before the one we've been looking at. On number 4, it says, to ensure the safety of students and staff and avoid potential disruptions, all visitors, outsiders shall register immediately upon entering any school building or grounds when school is in session. And then it goes on to definitions, which I also agree that that is very helpful. I don't know if the penal code and the evidence code are the same, but with regard to this policy administrative regulation, any person listed below is considered a visitor. All others are considered outsiders with the exception of site district staff, students of the school not currently on suspension, and delivery persons or other contracted workers who are on the school grounds at the school's request, according to the penal code. I think they should still have to check in. And then it defined who visitors are. Parents and guardians of a student, they should check into the office. Volunteers should check into the office. Public employees, employment requires being on school grounds, or any person who's on the school grounds at the school's request, which is kind of referencing that above paragraph. That's also a visitor. A representative of a school employee organization who's engaged in activities, that should be on there. An elected public official is a visitor. A publisher, editor, reporter, all of those are visitors. So I still believe that that list is a good one, and I think we should keep it. As visitors, they're not, they need to check in, right?
Correct, which is, I think is what we said,
Yes.
is we're going to take the line through visitors are
Yes.
and keep it.
And keep definitions and the paragraph before. I just like that, to ensure the safety of students and staff. I really like that statement, the whole one.
Cindy, which document are you referring to?
This is the AR 1250. Okay, yes. So see right under 4, then it says to ensure the safety of students and staff and avoid potential disruptions, all visitors, outsiders shall register immediately. So to me, it's register or check in, have their badge, whatever that means to us. That whole paragraph, and then the definition. I thought the definition was helpful. And then visitors are, definition, who those people are, 1 through 6. Wait. 6 is already defined in one of those. You redid it in 5. So that was fine. The lined out 6. So that looks good. I think it's
Got
good.
it?
Find it. Oh.
yep.
All right.
So yeah, just to be clear, I mean,
Yeah, no, it's fine.
following, our process was to follow the recommended language. If you look at CSBA, all those it only has outsiders registration and registration procedure, so that's why it's lined out. But now's the time to,
Yeah.
if
Right.
we so
Now-
choose to put it back in.
I have one other one. The beginning of this of the whole thing. So scroll up to the top, AR 1250, the very top of that page. Okay, so that one, visitors, outsiders. I like that the governing board encourages parents, guardians, and interested members of the community to visit the schools and view the educational programs, which helps us. It helps get the word out, what we're doing. Like what we just did on the bus route, we went around. So I don't think that's something we want to discourage them from coming, but checking in, why are you here, help us out, that I think is what we all want to know before they come on campus. Now I know CSBA did a very extensive right after Columbine happened in '99, we went through an emergency safety school procedure and what should you do when the media comes. We had numerous media people from KCRA, the Democrat, a couple of reporters were on that committee, and a photographer. So getting their perspective was helpful. Anytime you include the media in a new change that you make, helps them be on board with you. So they felt that they had full access to all the campuses. So we as school board members and as superintendents let them know that they could not have full access in an emergency because we needed them to stay in a certain designated area until we deemed that the school was safe for them to enter. And there's students that might be in a dispute, and we can't have them taking photographs of them and putting them on the news. So we had to let them know that as well. So we had a good dialogue on that, and we came up with a procedure with their support on how we could arrange for them to get the information that they wanted to share with the public. But I think they're still visitors. They're not our personnel, and they're not part of our schools. So I think it's good the way it's been written.
Okay, so the next change on the board here is to reinstate the customer service welcoming. We like everybody come visit us statement. We're going to uncross out one thing. Oh, I got lights again. We're going to uncross out one thing down lower.
To register.
And then we're going to do the registration thing. I'm just trying to keep up with the changes that are in the hoop here. Trustee Newman.
I'm going to suggest on AR 1250, I don't see as many changes that need to be made on BP 1250 because it doesn't, sometimes the ARs and the BPs kind of mirror each other, but this doesn't. This is more like broad statements. They're not problematic. This is real detail oriented. I'm going to suggest that this comes back for another first read just this one.
So just the AR?
Yeah, just because there's just too many changes. We just need to figure out what's in, what's out, and there's too much stuff we've added. I can't make sense of it.
Okay.
So we'll bring it back for a second read, but we won't put it in consent.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
just so it comes
Look
back
at that
again where we can
compromise.
discuss it.
That's fine. So we'll interpret what was done here and then bring that back on the 8th.
Okay, that sounds good.
Good.
All right, so
Good suggestion.
we're good to go here. We've got our list of changes. Mr. Zierle's got his. The AR is going to get pulled. We'll bring it back as a second read, but it won't go to consent. So, that being said, I see no more lights out to the public for public comment on AR. Actually, we're going to scrap AR. The BP 1250 and BP 3312 on contracts. Seeing no public comment, back to the board. I think we've done ours. So we're looking for a motion to approve BP 1250 Visitors Outsiders and BP 3312 contracts and the deletion of AR 3312 on contracts.
I'll make the motion with the condition that AR 1250 come back in the discussion.
Correct.
agenda.
It's not coming back on consent.
Right.
It's coming
And
back.
the others can come back in consent.
Correct.
The motion?
Looking for a second. Trustee Marks, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay. So now we're up to my 3. I kept 3 instead of 4 because I wanted to keep it simple. We have board bylaws. 92222 resignation, 92224 oath of affirmation, 9240 board training. So I'm going to start with 9222 resignation because rumor has it there may be a question there. Essentially, that process is that we send a letter stating that we're going to resign through our superintendent and the county office of education.
That's been the process been followed.
So that's that one. We'll vote on one by one, but if I can keep moving, then we'll stay. We'll vote on it all together. So the other one is BB, Board Bylaw 9240, Board Training. That's essentially, we like training. For my fellow board members, if you want to do 40 hours over 5 weekends and go do the Masters in Governance program, I believe me and Trustee Marks have done that. Trustee Brown has done it. I think that's a very good use of time. It chews up a lot of your weekends, but it covers everything from setting direction to board policies to, it was, I would argue, by far the best 40 hours I've spent in training since I've been here. But I think training is a good thing for all of us. And then the last one is the oath of affirmation, which is 9224. And I believe Trustee Marks caught something there when we were looking at this in consult, that we needed to make sure that it said city clerk because we're in a bit different environment.
Yeah, so that last line says county clerk. Well, it's filed with the county clerk. It's filed with the city clerk, I believe. Yeah, but it's the city clerk that usually swears us in. But Ed Code here says, Ed Code 60, and I don't know what it says, but they say that other people could do that. Is it possible for us to have our own swearing in ceremony? Because we usually piggyback with the cities.
I can find out from Roman, and then you guys can make that choice.
Yeah.
That would be nice, because I agree with you. I think we went down and did it with the city with everybody else, and that's somewhat nice. But I think it would also be nice if we had our own ceremony. I mean, just because. And I think I forget maybe it was Adolfo that had to get sworn in on the flyer, or I forget who it was. Somebody had to get sworn in. Maybe it was John Irvin. When we got to a certain point in finding somebody to get him sworn in because of the process, and we're in a clunky bit because of the charter, and it's weird anyway, because even when we do all of our paperwork, you start paperwork with the city, then you move to the county, then you ignore the city, and it's a weird bit.
Yeah,
But
can't we invite the city clerk to come here?
oh, there you go.
Be part of our meeting.
Amen. That's even a better idea, because then again, it would be unique to us versus something sort of getting swept up in everything else. I like that idea. Look at that. Board bylaws in action. All right. So with that one comment, we're going to look into the swearing in, looking for a motion to approve 9222, 9224, 9240. Moved by Trustee West, seconded Trustee Irvin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, so we're down to B12, report of meetings attended by Board of Education members. Where y'all been this month? Actually, it's only been 3 weeks. Trustee Newman.
I just want to report on the CFA board meeting. I went to the
That I
CFA
missed.
board meeting last week. We only have those twice a year, so I probably should let you guys know what's going on. There's some new homes that are closing in the CFD 1994, which is for geographic reference is Village 1. So there's been some more work for our staff. So we've had an increase in our administrative costs for this last 6 months because there's been increased work because of the new homes that have been built and the tax. We're good on our collections. We're paying down basically in pay down mode of the bonds, and so we're doing really well on those. And there's that's really the growth area right now. There's some movement perhaps in CFD 1998. That's Crossroads. And so there may be some movement there in terms of new homes. When we have new homes, we have more students, so this impacts our enrollment and our demographics. So just to report in, there are new homes being built.
All right, and I apologize for missing that meeting. I haven't taken vacation in 2 years. I took 3 days off and lost track of time. I was sitting there thinking today, you know what? I think I missed a meeting. We're leaping August, and there was an email I missed, but I did get some good nap time in, which I never get. Trustee Brown.
So, question on the CFA meeting. New homes in the area near the mall will affect the high school district. Is that within any of the CFA districts?
That would be 1997 if I don't have the numbers wrong on that. And there's a big area out there that isn't in the CFD. So when the property is developed, the developer has the option of having it annexed into the CFD or not, or paying the fees up front. And I believe the growth out there is, and Dwayne isn't here to correct me, but I believe that the development out in that area, I think part of it is, part of it isn't. So.
Trustee Irvin? Or is that a fake light? You look shocked.
No, I just wanted to, I went to the multicultural town hall meeting that Congressman Josh Harder held over there at the Vet Center. Very well attended, very diverse group of community members. So, yeah.
Trustee Marks?
So I attended the backpack giveaway at Marshall Park with thousands of people. It was exciting. It was a back to school night with lots of booths, and I was at the Dr. Parker committee booth, manning that and helping parents sign up to help them get involved in the Dr. Parker committee, which was, we got about 75 or 79 new names of parents that would like to get involved. So we'll see how we do on that. And then I know Mr. Irvin, I'd asked him to take my place at the Crystal Clear Awards. And so, yeah, for Dr. Crosby. And so I'm sure you were there and got to help with the award ceremony with Crystal Clear Awards of one of our teachers, Reggie Rucker. or two teachers. Oh, and Elizabeth Garman. Okay, great. So that's awesome. So anyway, I was thankful that I could go to the backpack giveaway that night. So that worked out well.
Trustee Lopez.
Yes, so I also attended the back to school night at Marshall. Big shout out to Mady Herrera and all her
Yeah,
team
that's
for
right.
the work that they
They
do.
did great, yes.
I was in the the backpack room.
Oh, wow.
It was hot, but Josh Harder and I gave out some backpacks, so that was really cool seeing the kids excited about those. And then I was at the first day at Hanshaw. Again, great work, everyone. The kids were excited to have a DJ in the morning.
How bad? Trustee Brown.
So two things. I went to a community training for an initiative that's coming up on the state ballot that CSBA, CTA, Classified Union, AXA, and all labor groups in the state have pretty much fallen in line with. They're trying to garner support from all the districts and from every organization to make sure that we're able to support this initiative. And I don't think it's got a number or a classification yet, but we need to be on the lookout for that and make sure that our district is fully supportive of that initiative. Also, I attended the County School Boards Association meeting, and I'd like to announce that there will no longer be a fall and a spring dinner by that group. So we will have only a fall dinner, and would like to be sure that our district is well represented on October 2nd for that dinner. We have one of our schools is going to be providing the floral arrangements.
Oh, good.
So we lobbied to get that, and Grigori High School will be preparing those through our floral, what's the name of the class? The floral design?
Horticulture, yeah,
Floral design class.
Good.
And I'm going to keep lobbying to make sure that we can get that in multiple schools from our district, since every one of our schools has that program.
Okay, I think we all did the bus tour,
Yep.
which was great fun.
Many of us, not all of us. We know
and,
a couple of you were not there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to loop everybody in. Superintendent, myself, and legal counsel attended the SCOE hearing for the charter. That was the other thing I did to watch how the other board sort of interacts and moves. Decent meeting. I would encourage them to talk more like we do, because there's less confusion at the end. I think everybody here sort of knows where we're at, and we sort of flush things out. That was sort of odd to sort of watch it moving sort of quietly without a lot of discussion. Other than that, I think that was it for this month. Brings us to the last item of the night. Members who have a requested agenda item for a future meeting. Seeing none, I would, again, if you were interested in being on the budget committee and sort of taking that spot that I'm going to be off in class for, let the superintendent know. We voted on that, and so we may have to vote on it again, but I'm going to go get schooled up on how to teach people in school. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Newman looking for, and I think we don't need a second for that, do we? Adjourned. Trustee West, we beat 8:30. It's 8:25.
All right. Yes. Yeah, and Balo's policies. I know,
No,
but
we're
hey,
getting
it went
better.
pretty well. It was smooth.